Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind. This is our 105th episode, back once again to talk about movies and TV. Niles, how have you been the last couple weeks?
I've been good. I've been well, and I'm excited to be here again on another week, on another episode of Play Pause Rewind. Show where we talk about, yeah, just like you were saying, movies, things that are fun. Just have a nice, fun conversation about it.
Hmm.
And hopefully we'll have another one here today. How are you doing, Dylan?
Personally, doing great, but the world is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
America specifically,
Yeah.
I do want to call attention to some of the bullshit that's happened this week in our country. Mahmoud Khalil, a pro-Palestine protester from the Columbia protests last year, was
Mm-hmm.
disappeared by the American government. ICE showed up to his apartment and kidnapped him away from his 8-month pregnant wife and did not tell her where they were taking him and abducted him halfway across the country. He has now been located in Louisiana, I believe. Um,
Wow.
so, like, we always touch on politics on the show a little bit. This episode will have some political discussion as well. But, like, look, genuinely, even if you're not pro Palestinian in your perspective, which I think you should be, it's the morally correct position. But
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you believe, this shit should fucking terrify you. This is a permanent U.S. resident, has a green card. The ICE showed up. They didn't know he had a green card. They thought he had a visa. They were like, "We're revoking this," and he said, "I have a green card." There's actually, we're revoking that too, and then just took him. Um, that's
Wow.
this is illegal. This is against the law, a violation of the Constitution, the First Amendment. If you fucking care about that, you should care about this. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just we are gifted with our platform here, however small, and I think it's important to talk about that stuff when we can. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
uh, yeah,
It
anything you want to
it
add to
is it is
that?
yeah, it is bleak, and yeah, if that can happen to him, you know, who's to say that it can't happen to you or I?
Hmm.
Even if we are, you know, full fledged citizens, if we say something wrong, it feels like that they could come down on us swiftly, which is not great to feel at this
No.
time. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bleak, but I remain hopeful for the future,
Hmm.
even with all the bad shit going on in the world.
Yeah. I think there's hope as long as we all stick together and take action where needed. There is a
Hmm.
petition for his release that has, I believe, over 2.5 million signatures at this point. I'll include it in the show description. But like Niles said, with this type of policy, they can come for anybody. This is just blanket fascism. And the way fascism works, if you didn't know, is they start with the most marginalized people, be it trans people, gay people, Jewish people, Palestinians, activists who are going against the government. But fascism is self defeating and a cannibalistic structure. It must always have an enemy, and eventually that enemy will be you. And if you don't speak up
Hmm.
now early, there will be no one left to speak for you when they come knocking at your door. So stand up now while we still can. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, enough about that. We can talk about the movie now.
yeah,
This week,
something a little more fun.
yeah, this week we are reviewing Mickey 17, and we'll start with a couple minutes of non spoilers and then hop into spoilers after that. But this is the latest film from writer and director Bong Joon-ho and adapted from the novel, the 2022 novel Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. Mickey 7 follows protagonist Mickey as he gets killed and reprinted on a colonial space voyage, acting as the ship's expendable human. However, things take a turn after a new version of him is printed prematurely before Mickey has died, creating a situation of multiples. The movie stars Robert Pattinson,
Ooh.
Naomi Ackie, Mark Ruffalo, Tony Collette, and Stephen Yeun, and many others, and explores themes of capitalist exploitation, the buffoonish nature of contemporary American politics, romance, and more. Niles, what are your initial thoughts on Mickey 17?
I'm very positive on this political satire on this film. Um, I'll say that I'm not well versed in
Hmm.
Bong Joon-ho's filmography. I've really only seen Parasite and Snowpiercer. That's kind of the
Okay.
extent of his films that I've seen so far. But they always seem to have this very strong socio-political commentary in his films. Like that was definitely prevalent in Parasite and
Hmm.
Snowpiercer. About classism, those kind, a lot of different heavy topics like that. And Mickey 17 is no exception. So I'm very positive on this. This is like a very ripe political satire. There's lots
Hmm.
to kind of explore within it. And, it's not too subtle, but he's not really known for his subtlety as a director or
Hmm.
a creator. I think he's very on the nose in most of his stuff. But this is, as a sci-fi concept, it felt very original, felt very appropriate for the time that we are in today here in 2025, which we'll get to in spoilers. Of course,
Hmm.
there's lots to unpack with that. Um, but I was really impressed by this movie. It's there's great performances all around. Robert Pattinson's obvious the big standout for me.
Hmm.
I liked how he kind of played these iterations of Mickey very differently. One's kind of more of his aggressive Batman voice character, and then the other one's a
Yeah.
little bit more submissive and they're just very different, and I liked how he was able to kind of play off of himself, but also
Hmm.
play off of others. It was just really um yeah, I think it was just a very very powerful movie overall. What are your initial thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, so I liked this a lot. This is not my favorite of the Bong Joon-ho films I've seen, which it's the same ones as you. I've seen this, Parasite and Snowpiercer, but I had a ton of fun with this. I'd say this is the most lighthearted of the three for sure.
Yes.
Uh, Pattinson. I need to watch Okja on Netflix. I've heard that one's great as
Yeah,
well.
me too.
Yeah, I agree. Pattinson is really, really great and plays off of himself really well. That's obviously a difficult thing to do, even though we're seeing it happen more and more. I'm seeing a lot of people not really love Mark Ruffalo in this, but
Hmm.
I honestly found him very funny. He's
Yeah.
sort of like a hybrid of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but maybe a bit smarter than either of those guys. Just a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and
Yeah. Definitely.
yeah, I also think the concept of the expendable is a solid, if on the nose, critique about how capitalism views working people. Um, Especially
Hmm.
back to the like industrial revolution age, where people would just be sent into factory machinery to die, to continue producing profits. Right. Um, I have a
Hmm.
few issues with the movie, mostly centered around it not being as tight as it could be. There are a couple characters that just sort of drop out of the movie for large chunks of it. But
Hmm.
it wasn't all that much of a problem with for me. Overall, I had a really good time. It made me laugh, and it's a fun satirical look at our current state of political affairs, but a fun sci-fi
Yeah.
movie as well. Any other non-spoiler thoughts you want to touch on?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I will agree with you that I think the movie could have been a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the third act kind of starts to ramble a little bit. Like some of these scenes go on for, I don't know. It could have been tighter. Could have been
Okay.
tighter in the end. I think there could have just been like some things that they could have done to make it a little bit more digestible or a little bit shorter. But overall, really positive on this. And yeah, I don't think that this movie is um, on the same level as like Parasite or Snowpiercer. Like
Mm-hmm.
Parasite in general. Like that was an awesome movie. Won so many Oscars. I don't think this one's gonna win any Oscars, unfortunately. But I don't think Mickey 17, like he wasn't trying to replicate what Parasite was. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily fair to compare the two films because they're so drastically different. And I think this is just a really fun movie overall with a really original storyline, something that almost anyone can get behind, and kind of easy to understand and grasp, and you can really apply like the perspective of this movie to real life in a very
Mm-hmm.
easy way as well.
Yeah.
Um, and also say that, since we're it's going to be a political episode, we're going to talk about some people here that are very well known in politics these days. But with the prospect of like, because this movie is like all about space exploration,
Mm-hmm.
colonialization on a different planet, spreading humanity to the far reaches of the universe, I suppose. And with the prospect of space colonization becoming increasingly possible or plausible in the
Yeah.
next few decades here, it's kind of terrifying to imagine expeditions like this one going out into the world without the Mickey element. But it feels kind of fantastical right now. But it also is frightening that it's like this movie is only set like 50 or 25 years in the future, I think, from today,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which is like a little unnerving. I'm like, there's a part of me that like I could see that happening, but people 25 years ago also thought that we'd have flying cars by now. So
Correct. Yeah, I remember a couple years back, I think someone, I believe they worked at NASA or something, but they were talking about with all the billionaires have their space projects, right? And they
mm-hmm.
were, you don't understand how many people operationally it takes to send a handful of people up into space. And they're like, the
Yeah.
billionaires have no intention of going to space. They intend to send you to space to work out of the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Colonize
can
other
see that.
planets. The billionaires want to outsource production to Earth's orbit and send us up there. That's the goal of all this shit.
Oh
So
God, that's not
yeah.
fun to think about either.
No, no. But you wanna hop into spoilers for a little bit?
Yeah, let's get into it, and
All
I'll
right.
do a quick plot recap for
Alrighty,
us,
let's do it.
just to set the stage in case you've forgotten about the movie or whatever. But as the film progresses, two creepers become stowaways on the expedition ship, which are the native species on the planet. They're kind of
Mm-hmm.
these little insect-looking things, but they're captured
Yep.
on the expedition ship. Um, they try to keep the existence of the multiples a secret for a while, but it's revealed pretty quickly to the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the creepers start to surround the ship. The two Mickeys are eventually sent or go out to negotiate the
Mm-hmm.
species, while the expedition leader, Kenneth Marshall, plans to exterminate the natives for his own propaganda film. He dies in a fiery explosion with Mickey 18. And as spring comes, the story ends happily with the humans and the creepers coexisting peacefully. And you can start to see kind of the research and everything flourish. And
Mm-hmm.
it is a nice, happy ending at the end of the day, which is, we don't get a lot of those anymore.
Yeah, I will say too about the creepers on the ship. One important element that I think ties into the colonialism element of this story is they don't go on the ship. They're just like chilling in
Yes.
the rock that they're like playing in or living in, and then to impress Marshall, like some people bring the rock onto the ship and then they slice it open, and he's making some big
Yes.
speech about it, and then they just like hop out because they're like, oh my god, ah.
Yeah.
But
then they kill one, and then they take one kind of prisoner, and that
right.
starts the whole creeper thing to surround them. And it's like a whole ego thing too, because he's like, we're just gonna like put our names on this rock. Almost every name from the ship is going on this rock. Almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
uh, it's yeah. That's the movie in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. But central themes for sure, like we have this exploitation of labor and just complete dehumanization of the working class. Um, Already mentioned it in non spoilers, but Mickey's role as an expendable is front and center, and the film is using it to talk about how workers are seen as disposable in the capitalist system. Like
mm-hmm. Yep.
uh, in some cases very literally, where the work will kill them and then they will just be immediately replaced by another person, and in some cases less violently, but like if you have to leave a job for whatever reason, or you have a family tragedy, or your circumstances change, you have to leave, you will be filled immediately. the machine must go on, and you don't really matter as much as you would like to think.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in this movie, Mickey, he's got this role, yeah, as expendable. He
Hmm.
sucks it up. He does the hard jobs that no one else wants to do or should do, and he's just colloquial. It's colloquial on the ship that he's
Hmm.
just viewed as an expendable, and because of that status, because of his job, everyone on this ship treats him as less human than them.
Hmm.
Like he's viewed as being kind of like this subclass to them, or like just kind
Right.
of this layer down. Like, and especially to Marshall, like the leader, like he just like views him totally as just like, okay, yeah, he's about to like he's suffering. Let's shoot him and let's print out another one. Like he
Hmm.
keeps Miki keeps getting sent into these dangerous situations. He's used as a guinea pig for others, and like he's just this is whenever he appears to be at this point of no return. Yeah, like I said, they just think it's better to put him down and just reprint a copy, um, even if it's like, well, this is technically life. This is like precious. Like he is
Hmm.
a human being just like us, and it's it really it's very applicable, I think, to our modern era here. Um,
Hmm.
it's a very on the nose commentary about worker exploitation, the exploitation of like the working class,
Right.
and it's just very profound um, theme for the time period that we're in.
Yeah, and I one thing too, because we talk about it a little later on with the macaroon shop, right? But it's he volunteers for this job, so I guess people would make the argument, especially like lovers of capitalism, would make the argument. It's like, well, you chose to do this, you chose to assume this role. And it's like, well, yeah, but he was put in a very desperate situation where he really had no choice because he had to
Mm-hmm.
do something to escape his current circumstances, and so he made a less than ideal situation, um, because he trusted the wrong person earlier on and made a bad financial decision. And so much of our economic system really just perpetually punishes people for uh, anything that happened in their past, be it a bad financial situation, be it being born in an unfortunate situation, or just something entirely out of your control in some other way
Mm-hmm.
you at an economic disadvantage, which I think ties into what you're going to say next about the.
Yeah, no, that absolutely does, because the way that I was viewing this movie, especially with this whole entire theme, is through a lens of kind of immigration, and then also just
Mm-hmm.
like the U.S. in general. Like right now, we are in experiencing, like we kind of mentioned at the top, very briefly, like this mass deportation effort
Mm-hmm.
of undocumented immigrants in our country, and some that are have documentation too.
Yep.
It's not great. And in most cases, these immigrants, like these people are performing jobs, working jobs that no other American wants to do, but it needs to get done. Like, how many people in America right now are willing to go pick crops or work in construction or in landscaping or in the cleaning
Mm-hmm.
industry, or just like there's all these industries that really depend upon immigrant labor,
Yeah.
and there's just simply not enough like people like in the U.S. who want to go do those jobs, even though they're soon going to be wide open, and
Yeah.
you know,
Or could do those jobs because they're very physically
mm-hmm,
taxing, and it's like backbreaking labor. People don't recognize that. So like even if you have no issues with the immorality of a mass deportation system, which it is immoral, and also something I actually didn't know until recently, but treating these people like criminals is gross, but it's also incorrect. It's a
mm-hmm,
migrating illegally is not a criminal violation; it's a civil violation. It's like the equivalent of getting a parking ticket. That's the type of
yeah,
violation that is. So treating these people as hardened criminals that you can just put in chains and throw them somewhere else is vile. But beyond that,
yeah.
yes, there is that economic consideration as well. That it's like it will be disastrous for this country. I don't know if you've ever seen the film A Day Without a Mexican. Have you heard of it?
I've
It's
heard of it. I've never seen it.
yeah, it's I only watched it once in like Spanish class in high school a long time ago. But basically, one day everybody wakes up in like Southern California, and all the Mexicans are just gone. They have vanished, and the entire state falls into disarray immediately because that is what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
That is what will happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's gonna like drive up prices for everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just not gonna be great in the near future. Not looking forward to
No.
that. But it's everything about this film also made me think of historically everyone who has ever
Mm-hmm.
immigrated to America, both voluntarily and non-voluntarily. You know, all the slaves that were taken and enslaved here in America, like they could, everyone, you know, they've contributed so much to the growth
Mm-hmm.
and development of our country, and yet so many Americans are quick to forget those contributions, and they continue to just view these immigrants and so many others as less than them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you there are so many people who are just thinking like, oh yeah, you know, it's nice that I'm riding on this like this railway line running through
Mm-hmm.
America and from California, and it's like, this is so great. Who made that rail line? Like, it, like, you know, it was Chinese and Asian immigrants who came to America and built it
Mm-hmm.
for you,
Yep.
and you're never going to think about that. And so many people are like this, where they're not thinking about those contributions, and they're just viewing people in that kind of in these roles as just like lower than them, and just
Right.
like they don't even have to think about them.
Well, right, because it's also been like deliberately excluded from our history books, right? Like growing up,
Mm-hmm.
we're taught that America was like founded on the principles of freedom and liberty, home of the brave, and all that. It's like, motherfucker, this country was built off the backs of slave labor and genocide of the indigenous population. Like,
Mm-hmm.
freedom for who? A very specific group of people that did not
Yeah.
include the majority of the people living here. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, the you know the principles, the concept of America is nice, but in practice, we've never really lived up to that, have we? Uh, but
No, we're really falling short. It was the biggest. The growth of America was the biggest crime that ever occurred in history. We
yeah,
just
it's
stole the
it's
land.
true.
We stole the people.
Yeah, deliberately
Everything.
like killed the entire animal populations that made up the food supply for the Native Americans. It was pretty fucking horrifying shit. Did you know that
Yep.
George Washington's famed wooden teeth that everybody talks about, they weren't wooden. They
Mhm.
were taken from slaves that were assembled
Yeah.
into dentures for him. But okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
it's
other themes too are explored in this movie. Themes of self-worth, individuality. You want to talk about that a little bit?
yeah. I just want to wrap up really quickly
Mm-hmm.
on the main themes. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Sorry.
colonization effort of the icy planet. Just tying it back to the movie, colonization effort of Nif- Niflheim. I think that's how
Niflheim.
they pronounce it. Niflheim. Thank you. Thank you.
Niflheim.
Niflheim. It would have been impossible in this movie without Mickey. And America as we know it today would not exist without immigrant labor, both documented and undocumented.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to wrap up with that. But yes, this movie does explore many other themes, more subtle than the main obvious ones that we've already discussed. I really picked up on a lot of finding your own self worth and your
Mm-hmm.
individuality throughout this movie. You know, Mickey. He's died so many times. He's on his 17th and 18th iteration, and he's really
Yeah.
kind of come to accept his role as an expendable. But he does, over the course of the movie, since we're first introduced to him, he gradually develops a better understanding of his identity, a better relationship with it, a better understanding of
Mm-hmm.
his self worth, and that's thanks in large part to his partner. Nasha,
Nasha.
just
Mm-hmm.
helping him out and being there to support him. But this is kind of a Bildungsroman, his own kind of tale of self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. One thing I have a note on that too, but I just looked up because Niflheim, it sounded very Norse to me.
Yeah.
And I was correct. A bit of a joke. I think maybe the movie kind of subtly hinting that without Mickey and his contributions, this expedition was completely doomed. Because in Norse mythology, Niflheim is the cold, dark, and misty world of the dead, ruled by the goddess Hel. So it seems like it
That's
was kind of a
amazing.
doomed expedition if it weren't for Mickey and his, capacity for empathy and this like chance encounter he has. But on the theme of self-worth and individuality, I really liked the element that when Mickey 18 is printed and they're both in existence,
Hmm.
Mickey's relationship with death changes because he's like, well, before I always kind of felt like it was just me, like I'm carrying on and going to the next one, but now it's just gonna be you, and I'm done after this, and I think that was like fundamental in his
Hmm.
change in perspective as well, because it's like, yeah, now it's not like a quote unquote reincarnation. It's two separate lives existing at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. And yeah, there's lots of themes of these rebirth throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, with Mickey being reborn, reprinted multiple times throughout the movie. But also,
Yeah.
humanity in a way is they're trying to you know rebirth humanity on this new
Mm-hmm.
colony
Yeah.
here. But then there's also this kind of this promise of salvation throughout the movie. This that this new colony holds for humanity and for these people and for the future. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are pretty prevalent themes throughout this movie too.
Yeah, and I'd say like even rebirth and salvation of like human morality and justice in the events of the plot. Like this colony is started by like a pretty horrible fucking guy, um, who's just obsessed
Hmm.
with himself and cares about nobody else. But due to the like kindness and proactive behavior of the people on the crew, like it becomes something different, a healthy society that can coexist with the native population instead of immediately falling into war.
Yeah, something very nice there, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
And um, moving along, I Bong Joon-ho,
Bong Joon-ho.
he's kind of this. Yes, thank you. I always mess that up. Um, he does this. It's kind of his signature. I was doing some research on him, but
Mm-hmm.
one of his signatures with a lot of his films is just blending genres together. Like I
Yep.
think you can definitely see that in like, Parasite, where there's like thriller elements. There's kind of like the suspenseful elements, but then also you got some comedy in there and
Mm-hmm.
some action and
Family
these other kinds of
drama.
elements in there. Yeah, family drama. Like he does a good job of blending these elements together, and I think Mickey 17, it's no exception. I think he does a
Mm-hmm.
good job of creating this unique mix of sci-fi mixed with dark comedy mixed with political satire with just like a
Mm-hmm.
touch of action and some romance. Like it's just he's a good little tinkerer, and he does a good job of creating a really nice combination here in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And then it's pretty fucking funny too. I would say this is the most.
Yes. It is.
It's the most jokey of the movies I've seen from Bong Joon Ho. Snowpiercer isn't funny at all. It's
Nope.
it's very bleak. Parasites got its humor, but it takes a dark turn, obviously, as well. But you have that like not even undercurrent, just current of class politics running throughout all of these movies, especially in
Yeah.
Snowpiercer. That is not an undercurrent. The entire story
Yeah, that
takes on
is.
a train that is literally just the class system.
Yeah, that is just literally the entire movie, but I get what you mean. But yeah, there's lots of great comedic bits throughout this movie to break up the chaos of endless Mickey deaths and pain and suffering that he endures.
Yep.
There's just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, lots of good little bits sprinkled throughout. Um, I think just in general, like Mickey 17 is just a pretty funny character. Like how
Mm-hmm.
Pattinson plays him, kind of like all coy and like
It's
submissive.
fine. I love that when
Yeah,
they're putting him in the incinerator and realize he's still alive, and he's like, it's fine. Just get it over.
just throw me in. I'm ready to die. But yeah, all of his deaths had like these dark comedic moments too, like the one you just
Mm-hmm.
said. Like there was some funny
Where
stuff
his
there. Like
hand gets knocked off in space.
Well, that was just so terrible too, because they're like, he gets out there and he's like, "Hey, wait a second. The thing that you wanted me to fix is okay." They're like, "Yeah, so here's the deal." We actually needed to test the impacts of UV radiation, so
Uh-huh. Well, and then
was
when he
terrible.
goes to dinner with the Marshalls, and he's like thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna have that ribeye with the Marshall, and then it cuts to him eating that gelatin thing, and
Hmm.
right next to Kai, who has like a real fancy meal given for her, but then he just starts getting completely sick, and then decide, well, we can test this other thing on him since he's probably gonna die anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's so brutal.
Hmm.
But he's always positive, and that's such a nice, fun element that he has with that character
Yeah,
too.
he just has like a good outlook on life despite everything. Well, Mickey 17 does. Mickey 18 less so. He- he's,
Yes.
yeah. And his backstory was pretty funny as well. We only get into it, but I thought that was so funny.
Oh, that was so funny. Just like, you might have been wondering how I got on this ship, and then it's like, oh yeah, my friend told me about the next big craze, macaroons. So we took out a big loan to start a macaroon business. It's like, what?
I love
What?
I love that it's Steven Yeun's character, and doesn't he told him, it's like he said it was gonna be bigger than burgers, I think is what he said. Um,
I don't know. I mean, macaroons are nice. Maybe they'll have a big surge in the future. We'll see.
mm, yeah.
And I also, yeah, I liked Mark Ruffalo's character, Kenneth Marshall, as
Hmm.
well. I think that he gave a great performance, and it's such an absurd character. He had lots of little funny moments
Hmm.
throughout. Just like his delivery is just, it's so easy to laugh at, in my opinion, because it's just like, it's so Trumpian, so Elon esque, like,
Hmm.
just exudes that those two little dickheads, you know.
Yeah. Like I understand too why it doesn't work for some people. It is a
Sure.
very it's a very stiff performance, but it's intentionally stiff and it worked for me comedically. But I think a lot of people just aren't really clicking between this and Poor Things, just aren't really clicking with Mark Ruffalo in these like weird characters that he's played
Mm,
couple years. I find both of them very amusing, but I understand if it's not everyone's cup of tea. Like he's doing something very
yeah.
different. So that's
I
fine.
I get that. Yeah, everyone's got their own preference, but yeah, like we were just talking about it earlier when he was like, when they cut through the rock and they shoot the little creeper, and he like is trying to give this big speech about it. He's like, these creepers ruined our big moment, and like, but we're gonna rise better, harder, faster, stronger, or whatever. And then another creeper jumps out on his face. It just interrupts him. It's so good.
Yeah.
Or like how he interacts with his wife, like Tony. She
Mm-hmm.
did such a good job in this role, but like she would always just kind of lean over, whisper in his ear, and he would like think for a minute, and he's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like after listening to her, I thought that was clever.
Yeah. Well, and she subtly like corrects his language. Like he'll say something and then she'll be like, no, say it this way. Or like, no, we are gonna do this thing. He's like, yes, we are. um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and then also with Tony Collette's character, his wife, like her, um, I guess her idea of a strong society is one that has great sauce. So she is on the small of her own to find like delicious sauce from exotic ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just a weird thing that keeps coming back up in the movie.
It's all about the sauce. The sauce. That is a weird bit about her, but
Yeah.
one of the funniest things in the entire film that I just couldn't get over was just the guy dressed as a pigeon.
Yeah, I love that. I love that this is never addressed or called into question.
Yeah.
He just is dressed as a pigeon. He has some role in this weird government, but he's the pigeon guy. Um, that's it. But
I have no idea why, but I love it. It's so absurd and cartoonish.
yeah, I like another theme too is just what I'll call the idiotic violence of colonialist expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Complete incuriosity by the people in charge leads to needless loss of life and almost causes war with a peaceful species, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
go into this planet and they just grab a fucking big rock and pull it under their ship and cut it open, invading these things' natural habitat, which causes a little mini crisis, which they really overreacted to. They didn't have to be so crazy about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
Marshall tries to use the entire thing to shoot a really stupid looking propaganda video to make himself look awesome, and then he gets himself
Mm-hmm.
killed. It's great.
it's it's a great turn of events.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this expansion, it doesn't feel entirely dystopic, like, yes, the Earth is obviously not doing well at the start of the film. You can see they have this like sandstorm alert while they're
Mm-hmm.
like inside, and it's like, oh, another one. They're all kind of acting. It's like, oh shit. So yeah, things aren't going well on Earth, but it doesn't seem like to the point of like no return, but maybe it is.
Uh-huh.
But obviously a lot of these people they wanted to get on these expeditions to get off Earth, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't feel like it was a necessity entirely for the species. It kind of felt like
Yeah.
the expedition was mainly about Marshall, his
Mm-hmm.
vanity, his ego. He's like, I didn't win the elections here, so I need to go do something that's important elsewhere, which is absurd.
Right. Like I'll say like and there are definitely dystopic elements within the society, at least on the ship, and maybe like it's not entirely apocalyptic on Earth, but I will say that was a really big sandstorm and they don't react to it much at all, which kind of implies to me, oh, they're dealing with a lot of really bad weather events.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
um
for
yeah,
sure.
but it does seem to like this specific expedition, maybe the other colonial expeditions were less like this, but this very much felt like a little bit of a eugenics experiment by this Nazi who wanted to have a bunch
Yeah,
of pure-blooded people or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Because he was all pushing like natural births and natural
Mm-hmm.
foods. We're gonna grow our own crops. Like, we're not gonna like raise kids in test tubes. Like, it's gonna be like a natural society, whatever. Like, yeah, it just kind of felt like he was push. It was more about his greed and his ego
Mm-hmm.
rather than like a a point of desperation for humanity in general. But I'm
Yeah.
sure plenty of those people were desperate.
Yeah, because he definitely is like this disgraced political figure who wants some semblance of authority and popularity. So he brings his like cult along with him. It's like, let's go. And there's I think he says like purity at some point or another, right? So there's definitely
Yes.
this like element of eugenics, and then he tries to pitch to Kai for her to be like the perfect specimen for birthing presumably his future children, which is it's very
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk of him, find these younger women
Yes.
and inseminate them, I guess, artificially, because I don't think Elon Musk has had sex.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
also.
there's
Oh, sorry.
no. What were you gonna say?
Um, yeah, well, also he like is specifically trying to have only sons, which is why he has such resentment for his trans daughter, who hates him
Hmm.
justifiably so. Yeah, so he's not.
Interesting.
Elon Musk is not having children so much as he is ordering genetics products for his little experiment. Because
Yes.
he's a fucking freak. um, but
Yeah.
speaking of, let's talk about the parallels to the MAGA movement and Elon and Trump, because there are quite a few of them. I would say, one, they're a bunch of fucking
Yes.
zealots. There are a bunch of weird freaks in this movie, just like MAGA.
Mm-hmm. They're fanatical. They're zealots. Yeah, they all have the stupid red caps on, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like vying for Marshall's attention. They're all bought into his shtick,
Mm-hmm.
even though he's such a fucking loser and he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about or what he's doing. They're just like, no, he's the man. He like, you should have won. I voted for you. You bring me on your expedition out there, and
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah, not everyone on board is like a zealot on the expedition, but you
Right,
can
that's
tell there's a
true.
lot of them. There's a
Yeah,
lot.
it seems like more people on the ship than were initially led to believe are just kind of like people who are just looking for something else. I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole mission is a space colonization effort, which reminds me of Elon Musk's long he's late promise to colonize Mars, which he was gonna do. I don't know. It's several points in the last 15 years or something. He hasn't gotten very far in that mission. Yeah, I also really love that the mission is clearly very poorly thought out and results in horrible living conditions for like everybody involved except for Marshall and his wife. Everyone else is
Yeah, right.
like eating gruel and has this strict ration system and lives in this depressing ass dystopian spaceship. And then Marshall and his wife
Yeah.
have this very decorated cabin and get fancy food.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, wow, fuck this guy. And yeah, I mean, he does really resemble Musk a lot, and Trump. I mean,
Hmm.
he's expecting everyone else to do the work. Like he you know gives Mickey 14-hour shifts, and Mickey's just working around the clock. He's like, you're an expendable, you just got to do the work for me, work, 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 work,
Hmm.
work. And like, you definitely see, like, in the real world, Elon has a kind of a history of that too, of just like
That's right.
wanting his employees to just put in overtime all the time. Like,
Hmm.
if you're working 60-hour weeks, that's not enough for him. Like, he wants more. He wants more. Like, it's he's a shit bag. And yeah, I really
Yeah.
hope that he just gets on that ship to Mars and just something happens to it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think if we just sent him up there now, just right now by himself, he's a genius, right? So like if we just put him on
Yeah.
a trajectory to Mars, he'll be able to figure out how to survive there by the time he gets there, right? If he's
Hmm.
fucking smart, he could do that. I believe in you,
Yeah.
Elon. I think you should go to Mars tomorrow. Just do it. Just do it.
Just just give it a try. Give it a try.
Yeah. Give it a go. Give it a go. But yeah, it's funny. The Mark Ruffalo character is fucking hilarious. He's a doofus and an asshole and an incompetent fool. But let's talk
Yes,
about the lead for
absolutely.
a little bit. Robert Pattinson as the Mickeys. We get two. Well, we get
Hmm.
several of them. I'd say one thing that it doesn't matter, but it is very interesting that the Mickeys 1 to 17, as far as we see, seem more or less the same. But there seems to be a big difference
Yes.
between Mickey 17 and 18, and that's fine. It's just that's where the focus of the story is. But yeah, Robert Pattinson
Hmm.
does a great job.
Yeah, yeah, great as always. I think that he's just, yeah, he's really come a long way um, from Twilight, and I'm so happy to see it. We talked about him on the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
We had an episode about that, so I encourage you all to go check that out because that was a fun conversation. And he's really fun. Yeah, I saw a comment online that was just like, yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Mickey 18, he's kind of got his Batman voice on,
Mm-hmm.
kind of that
Yeah.
rugged aesthetic in a way. Um, but yeah, he's so fantastic in this film.
Yeah, he's great. We also, I don't know if you remember this, but we talked about him in another episode of our show, The Devil All the Time, our third
That's
ever,
right.
where he plays a horrifying man.
Yeah, a terrible, terrible pastor.
Yes.
That is a fun
Um,
movie.
yeah, I remember you liked it more than I did, but it was very interesting to watch and talk about. But
Hmm.
yeah, I really enjoyed here how he made each Mickey, well, the main two, feel very distinct from each other. Like Mickey 17 is kind of not necessarily a pushover, but he just kind of goes with the flow. He's just happy to be here. He loves his girlfriend, all that stuff. And Mickey 18
Hmm.
is like, we hate that guy. Why don't we kill that guy? He
Yeah.
sucks. We just go kill him. We can do that. And his
Yeah.
first major act in the story is to attempt to assassinate Marshall.
Yeah. Well, he even tried to like kill Stephen Young's character in the furnace room or whatever, even before that.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
he's
right.
kind
Yeah,
of,
I forgot that was before. He tries to kill Stephen Young's character twice.
yeah, he's kind of a psychopath.
Uh-huh. Oh my god, and then
It's
Steven
and like
oh,
yeah.
is Steven Yeun's
No, I
character
was
too.
just
Oh, go for it.
no, I
You
was just gonna
first.
say that the the s- the technology has come such a long way
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just like him being able to act against himself on screen
Yeah.
here. Like there's so many shots where it's like two Robert Pattinsons on screen. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a testament to like how far the industry's come, and it just feels so natural in this movie. Like there was never like, of course, yeah, it's Hollywood, so it's like, and it's sci-fi, so it's like you got to kind of suspend your disbelief for a second, but like it felt very natural.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will say, it felt very natural to me to see both of them interacting on screen, doing similar things.
Yeah. And there's one other thing about Steven Yeun's character and just the Mickeys. That one scene where they're
Mm-hmm.
in prison and Steven Yeun's like, "Well, we got to kill one of them." The other guy's like, "Well, which one?" It's like, "Kill 17." And then he just pauses for a second. He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's just kind of surprising. Like you've known him longer. Why are you killing him?" Ugh.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, and I mean, we can't talk about Robert Pattinson without talking about his counterpart in this movie
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I really like Naomi Ackie in this, and I think the relationship between Mickey and Nasha was great, and really it's the heart of
Mm-hmm.
the film. With one exception, which I'll talk about in a second, it's just a really sweet relationship, very genuine from the jump. And then she's like one of the few people on the ship who saw Mickey fully as human. And they're
Mm-hmm.
nice, it was very
It's
cute.
it's very endearing. She's a great counterpart to him, and yeah, she did a fantastic job in this role
Hmm.
too. Like she felt genuine at every turn. Like she knew what she was talking about. She had
Hmm.
ambition. Um, yeah, she was a good choice at the end to kind of lead the council, which was a nice
Yeah.
resolution for her character.
Yeah, and it's interesting though because she is great, but also the my main issue with the movie is about her character, just in
Mm-hmm.
one though, and it's just after Mickey discovers he is now a multiple. Some hijinks happen, and he goes back to his room to find that Mickey 18 is there with Nasha. And look at the top. I understand they've like done the drug thing that they do, and she's I guess out of sorts because of the drug or whatever. But I felt the way she behaved in this scene was kind of out of character for how she is in the entire
Mm-hmm.
rest of the movie. Like I know she's high, but Mickey is like really distressed because being a multiple, we haven't talked about it yet, but the multiples thing means like by the law, they all the multiples have to be killed. So
Yeah.
Mickey's kind of freaking out. He's stressed out, and then she I kind of objectifies him a little bit and wants to have a threesome with both Mickeys because oh this is gonna be great, it's gonna be really fun, unique situation, better take advantage of it. um and
Mm-hmm.
such a caring person specifically towards Mickey the entire rest of the movie, um but totally dismisses his concerns for his safety in this scene.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like she would behave that way. It maybe there was a cut scene about like how the drug affects you that totally changes your personality or something like that. But I don't know. I just didn't really love this scene that much. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I get that. Like I remember feeling kind of weird about that
Mm-hmm.
scene too, because it's like, yeah, I get the perspective that she's in, but to your point, yeah, it's like in that moment, I feel like Mickey 17 is kind of like, wait a second, like kind of starting to question their feelings for each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is this all you want? Is this how you just see me as like an object? It's like just kind of had like, yeah, not the best feeling while watching that scene.
Yeah. It felt like the starting point to a different story. Like it felt like there would maybe
Yeah.
then a love triangle between the three of them that would cause like a lot of issues in their relationship, and it just doesn't. It's not that. It's not anything after that. Actually, I because again,
Yeah.
she's great in the entire rest of the movie, and I love that she like saves the little baby creeper by grabbing onto it with her teeth, which fucking hell that looks difficult and painful. But the only other negative
Mm-hmm.
The only other negative I have for this movie, we talked about it not being as tight as it could have been, and that ties in with this. It's just there are a couple characters, specifically Kai and Timo, Stephen Yeun's character. They just kind of disappear for a while, especially the third act.
Yes.
And I think it's more of a problem with Kai because she's kind of integrated with Nasha and Mickey's story a little bit more, and she gets a lot of play for a while, and then she's gone. Like I feel like she could have been part of that little coup that helps Nasha sort of escape with the baby creeper at the end or something. I don't know. It's just kind of,
Hmm.
well, where'd they go? Why did we spend so much time on them earlier if they're not going to be involved in the rest of the movie?
Yeah, right. Like, Steven Yeun's character, like he's like supposed to be a pilot or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you literally see like ships flying around in the third act, like above the ground, like getting
Yeah.
ready to prepare to like drop the nerve gas, and it's like, yeah, like you could have had like just even a few scenes of him being one of the pilots or something like that, like kind of having maybe a moral crisis just to add some complexity to his character. Because by the end, I was like, I'm ready to see this guy die. But
He
yeah,
gets away with it though, doesn't he?
he gets away with everything. Like, yeah, he gets off on self defense at the end, but uh, yeah. So I agree with you. I think that they kind of just dropped out, and I think even though that they had some endings quickly shoehorned in at the end,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they should have had like maybe a little bit more agency uh, here.
Yeah. And maybe they did in a earlier cut of the film or something and it just got whittled
Yeah,
down. Who knows? But I do love the creepers. I thought they were so fun and I got very sad when the little baby one got killed. It made it
hmm
viscerally upsetting watching that happen. I also enjoyed that while they are cute, they were essentially a highly intelligent bug species. So the connection ultimately made between the humans and them, it was like truly two different, very different light forms connecting and finding a way to coexist. Um, like they're
yeah,
very kind. They save Mickey selflessly for no real reason at all. They just do it, but it's not like, and this is not a knock on the Avatar films, but I just remember the Red Letter Media review of that movie, which I don't even agree with anymore. But it's like that the Navi just a little bit too like perfect and attractive for the movie to work as well as it could. And I don't agree with that about Avatar, but I agree with the opposite here that they made them not attractive at all. They're just like little insect guys, but you still feel an emotional connection to them because the movie is good.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and they're such a fun little species too, because like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when they're first introduced on screen, you assume that they're that he'll be eaten up by them, and then they actually save him and kind of push him out of their den and whatever, so
Mm-hmm.
he can get back to his people.
Yep.
And they're also funny in a way too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like, we'll kill you all by doing this high pitch that's just going to make your brain explode basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just like turns out to be a bluff at the end of the movie. It's
Yep.
like, that's wow, that was very clever. I liked how they included that in there. So yeah, these were
Yeah.
these were fun alien species.
Yeah, I liked it. I overall also enjoyed the way the story resolved. I thought it was pretty satisfying. Mickey 18 sacrificing himself to blow up Marshall was very satisfying to watch, and it was a good way to
Yes.
sort of resolve the Mickey conflict and get rid of the asshole at the same time. I also really liked that there isn't even a moment where either of the Mickeys even considers cutting off the creepers' tails. They just
Yeah.
immediately go and start trying to speak to them and resolve the situation with the translator that the scientist team developed based off of like listening
Yeah.
to Mickey and the baby clicks, which was kind of cute as well.
Yeah, that was such a fun moment too, and yeah, I think that just spoke to the strength of Mickey's character, that he's like, I'm gonna do what I think is best. Like that was kind of a
Hmm.
good moment of he's starting to finally understand his full self worth and his full individuality, like his agency here.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed Mickey 17. Um, Felt like a very original story. It's just lots of fun.
Yeah. I also enjoy that they got rid of the expendable machine after that. They realized like this is kind of this
Yes.
this isn't cool, and then I like the end title card where it changes from Mickey 17 to just Mickey Barnes. He's just himself again. No more numbers. It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was just a really fun movie. I liked it. It's nice.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up for sure. I would
Yeah.
recommend it.
Any other thoughts on Mickey 17?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, with
Yeah.
that,
Well,
let's hop into some other stuff. What you got?
so lately, yeah, there's a few things that I've been watching. Invincible season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So happy with this season. That'll be our next episode, I believe. We'll be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for that one. The next episode, like the final episode of the season, is dropping this week, and oh boy, Conquest is gonna be a fun fucking episode. I'm really enjoying this season. um, Lots to say about that. More to come. I'm also watching or continuing to watch White Lotus season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Such a fun series. It actually ties pretty closely to this episode too, because like White Lotus, like this discussion about Mickey 17, because White Lotus, there is a similar undercurrent of exploitation of labor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these people living these very luxurious lives and enjoying this very luxurious resort. This could not be possible without, you know, the exploitation of the indigenous populations, but also just like
Mm-hmm.
people working at the hotel being on like
Right.
your beck and call for everything. And like, yes, they're getting paid, but they got to put up with a lot of shit. And resorts in general are just really awful for the native communities. But it's a great show. Really liking it. I've also been playing Sid Meier's Civilization 7 on the Switch, the newest iteration of the Civilization franchise, and it is a little bit of an adjustment going from 6 to 7. There are definitely a lot of changes, and things are a little bit different. Still haven't finished my first playthrough of a whole Civilization campaign just yet. So I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the game yet, but I'm enjoying it for the most part.
Nice.
And I'm also reading this book. Actually, got it right here for viewers. American Lightning by Howard Bloom. This is I need to look more into the history of this, as whether how historical the content in it is, but it is a story of terror, mystery, and the birth of Hollywood, set in about the 1910s. This detective is investigating the series of bombing incidents across the country, and yeah, just kind of the birth of Hollywood's interweaved into it throughout, and union busting. Like there's lots of kind of like very interesting themes going on throughout it. I'm definitely enjoying it. It's I would recommend it right
Neat.
now. But that is it for me. What have you been up to, Dylan?
All right. Well, I finished Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth. That is the final book of the first part of Stormlight Archive. Really like the book overall, but it's not an ending, really. And I was kind of bummed by that. Like the past, like when I read the like Mistborn Era 1 and stuff, it's like Mistborn Era 1 is a complete story. Stormlight Archive Arc 1 is not. It has complete arcs a little bit, but it's like, oh, okay, this is a cliffhanger, and you're not publishing the next one until 2033. Yay.
Jeez. Got some time to wait.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, it was cool. I liked where a lot of the storylines led. I like his books a lot. They're fun. And then after that, I went back to Sherlock Holmes for a little bit. So I read Sherlock Holmes, The 5 Orange Pips. It is Sherlock Holmes investigating the villains of this one are the Ku Klux Klan, which was interesting. Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
yeah, they were the villains of it, even written in the era where it was written, which is great. And then started reading the next short story in the book I have, the Man with the Twisted Lip. I have not gotten very far into that one yet, so I don't really know what it is about just yet. Carrying on playing Dragon Age: The Veilguard, about 40 hours in at this point, so pretty think about halfway through the game. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, and RPGs, they're big. But I like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. It's not as in depth of an RPG as I've come to enjoy and be spoiled by games like Baldur's Gate 3, but that's okay. It's a fun modern BioWare game. It is good at doing the things they wanted to do with it. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's charming. I like it. And then because Daredevil Born Again just started, I decided I should catch up on Daredevil. So I started season 3 of
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil, and I was reminded about how great that show was. And
Nice.
I need to continue watching it because it's awesome. And then like you, I'm up to date on Invincible season 3. Excited to talk about it next episode. I think it's been a pretty solid season of Invincible. And then lastly, I watched the Academy Awards. The last
Nice.
weekend before last, it was actually a pretty decent show. Conan was a good host. I think most of the nominations and winners were pretty deserved. I was incredibly moved to see No Other Land win Best Documentary Feature. That was the film made by a collaboration between a Palestinian filmmaker and an Israeli journalist about the illegal occupation of a Palestinian village by Israeli forces. I have not had the opportunity to see the film because no company wanted to be its American distributor. So that's great. But it was,
Of course.
I don't know, that felt like a very important cultural moment in my mind, that film winning the Academy Awards. And the Academy had the good sense to not play them off until they were done speaking. So I appreciated that as well. Um, it
That is
was
good.
very important. But yeah, that's all from me, and I think that's going to be the show for this week. We will see you guys back here in 2 weeks' time to talk about Invincible season 3. Niles, until then, where can people find you online?
People can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. What about you, Dylan? Where can people follow you online?
People can find me on Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on YouTube at D-Day Movies. You can find us both here on your podcast platform of choice and on YouTube at Play Pause Rewind, as well as our second YouTube channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. If you liked it, please give us a like, good review, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Stay safe out there. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Bye.